So now what happens? If a person is surrounded by the filth, what happens now? There's one of two things that are going to happen. The first thing that's going to happen to this person is, this youth, which happens to majority of our youth, is this person he will engage in masturbation. This is how he's going to release his desire. Now this person, the desires are piling up until he reaches a point where he doesn't know what to do. He's totally frustrated. He has his desire inside him. He has to release it. He doesn't know what to do. The first thing he's going to do is he'll masturbate. He'll engage in masturbation. The second thing that he will do, if he does not engage in masturbation, older in age, more smart looking, someone more cunning, what he will do is he'll go end up committing adultery. This is the second. One of two things. He has one of the two ways of fulfilling his desires. The first way is that he engages in masturbation, as is the case of 80% of the youth, as quoted by many doctors. 80% of the youth are engaging in masturbation. 80%. And I hold a quotation, 99%, Wallahu A'lam regarding that, but 80% I read myself. 80% of the youth of today's day and age are engaging in masturbation. The first thing. The second thing, the second way is through committing adultery. And these are the two topics, these are the two subtopics that we will be discussing today. The first being masturbation, and the second being committing adultery, zina, fornication, adultery, the difference between the two, and we'll go into the detail of that. So the first thing is that how this starts off is, as we've been stressing for the past weeks, is the glance. It all starts from a simple glance. This is what it all roots off from. It all starts from a small glance. When a person, he makes his glance, he glances at someone or something, then the desires ignite into this person, and it feeds into his desires, and his desires gain energy, and they overcome this person, and they push him to the ground. He no longer has control over himself. He cannot even fight back to himself. When he's at the peak of desire, he can do whatever he wants to, he can say whatever he wants to, he can think of whatever he wants to, but he's at a point right now where there's no turning around again for him. You know, there was an English poet. He said on a beautiful piece of poetry, he said, all affairs begins with the sight. All affairs begin with the sight. The raging fire, a spark can light. The raging fire, a spark can ignite. So then here a whole fire is ignited by a single spark. And where do all these affairs begin from? All of these affairs, they begin right from the sight. So the Prophet ﷺ and the companions and the scholars who followed the righteous companions in the correct pathway, they were all of the opinion, majority of them, if not all, 99.9% were of the opinion that masturbation is haram in Islam. Imam Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi clearly says that masturbation is haram in Islam. In Subul as-Salam, Allama Juzairi rahmatullahi alayhi, he narrates from Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullahi alayhi that masturbation is haram in Islam. However, near both scholars, Imam Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullahi alayhi, they give permission for masturbation for a person who is 100% sure that if he does not masturbate right now, he will commit adultery. Meaning that a person is locked off in a place where he knows that right now, as soon as that door opens, the female is going to walk through that door. We booked this room for this intention. Now he's lying here on the bed, he's so excited, he has no idea what's going to happen, and the female is inside the room preparing herself, and he knows as soon as that door opens, the next thing that's going to happen is masturbation. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullahi alayhi would give the permission for this person that you masturbate right now and save yourself from the greater sin, which will be committing adultery or fornicating within the next few months. However, in general, haram again. Not a person, many of the youth, they say, there was a possibility I could have committed adultery. I was so excited I could have committed adultery. Now I could have committed adultery. Where a person is sure that there's no other way out, but he will commit adultery. And Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi clearly says that masturbation is haram again, basing his opinion on the narration of Ibn Masud radiallahu anhu that we narrated earlier on. Ibn Masud radiallahu anhu, he said that when we were young, we were with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Oh group of young companions, ya ma'ashar al-shabab, man istata'a minkum al-ba', whoever is capable of being married, falyatazawwaj, he should be married. And if he is not capable of marrying, fa'alayhi bis-sawm, he should fast, fa inna lakum fihi waja', because this is a shield for a person." So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi says, when he gave the companions the second pathway of fulfilling their desires, what did he say to them? What was the second pathway? Fasting. The Prophet ﷺ made no mention of masturbation, because masturbation was haram, as also proven to the verse, إِلَّا عَلَىٰ أَزْوَاجِهِمْ, that a person that fulfills his desires in any way, except for through one of the two ways. One is marriage, the second is through a slave girl that he owns. Any other way that he fulfills his desires, this will be haram. And many narrations of the Prophet ﷺ also support this. Hassan bin Affan radiallahu anh, he narrates a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ says there will be 7 people on the Day of Judgment. 7 people will come in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 7 different types of people will stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. And amongst these 7 different types of people will be many people who committed the 7 different types of people that committed the 7 different types of sin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be so displeased and so angry with these people that first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not even look at them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not even look at these people. Imagine the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not make them stand in the line of the knowledgeable people. Because the knowledgeable people will be the inheritors of the prophets, therefore they will be standing with the prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not grant these people the chance to stand with the knowledgeable people. And in return, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will throw these people in the fire of hell. First of all, Allah will not look at them. Second of all, they will not be granted the chance to stand with the scholarly people on the Day of Judgment. And the third thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that these people will be thrown in the fire of hell. And amongst these 7 people, the very first, Hassan bin Affan radiallahu anh, the first he narrates, the first person he says is, the person who commits adultery with his hand. The person who masturbates. Such a powerful hadith. Anas bin Malik radiallahu anh, the companion who spent his youth serving the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Our youth, we spend our youth, playing basketball. We spend our youth studying in colleges and high schools. We waste our youth in many different ways. I'm not saying studying is wrong, but in our youth we do many things that we end up wasting our youth. When we think back at our days at our youth, we think that it was possible that we could have made better use of it. But this companion Anas bin Malik radiallahu anh, he spent 10 years of his youth. From 10 years of age till 20 years. So he was turning 20 years old. These 10 years of his life he spent in the company of the Prophet ﷺ. He served the Prophet ﷺ all the time. He was always serving the Prophet ﷺ. If the Prophet ﷺ ever needed any small khidmat taken, any small service, he would call on Anas bin Malik radiallahu anh and he would tell him, Anas, please do this, Anas, please do this. And Anas bin Malik radiallahu anh, he would say that the Prophet ﷺ never gave me any difficult task to complete. And if he ever gave me a task that was possibly difficult, the Prophet ﷺ himself would come and help me. And this Anas bin Malik radiallahu anh, he served the Prophet ﷺ with such sincerity that the Prophet ﷺ made 3 du'as before he passed away. 3 du'as were made for Anas bin Malik radiallahu anh before the Prophet ﷺ passed away. The Prophet ﷺ with his own tongue made 3 du'as for him. The first du'a was, Oh Allah, give him barakah in his wealth. The second du'a was, Oh Allah, give him barakah in his children. And the third dua was, Oh Allah, give him a long life. These were the 3 du'as made for. And there was a fourth and fifth dua. The fourth dua was, Oh Allah, give him barakah. The fifth dua was, Oh Allah, grant him paradise. But these are the 3 du'as that the Prophet ﷺ made. And the companions testify that all of these du'as came true in his life. The first dua, Oh Allah, make him wealthy, they say that he was 20 years old when this dua was made for him. How old was he? Just beginning his career. Just very young. 20 years old. And they say that there was a time when there was not a single person that we knew of who was more wealthier than Anas bin Malik radiallahu anh. The dua of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The second dua of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Oh Allah, grant him barakah in his children, give him a lot of children. How was this dua accepted? Anas bin Malik radiallahu anh, he says that I buried 120 of my own children with my hands. 120 children, my own kids, I buried them with my own hands. I buried 120 of my own kids. And the third thing he says, Anas bin Malik radiallahu anh, and the companion and the mufassirin and the muhaddithin, the scholars write that Anas bin Malik radiallahu anh, he had such a long life that he lived over 100 years of age. This was a companion who was close to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and spent his youth serving the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He narrates the narration from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Nakihul yadi mal'un." The person who fulfills his desires using his hand, using different parts of his body, he stimulates himself, whether it be through touching, through pressing, through rubbing himself, or whatever action he does to reach himself to orgasm himself, or sometimes referred to as monosexual activity, where he himself is the one who brings himself into sexual orgasm or to orgasm. This person, Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu said, he is cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nakihul yadi mal'un. The person who marries his hand, he is mal'un, he is cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.